Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. This podcast is hosted by Asher Agency, a full-service partner to clients nationwide. Asher's services include media planning, creative, digital and social, website development, public relations, printing and fulfillment, and more. Anything you need to connect with your prospects and tell your story. To learn more, visit asheragency.com or contact us at hello@asheragency.com. Our guest is Lynn Marbach. Lynn, how are you?
I'm good. Freezing.
Yeah, it's hopefully by the time this reaches the world, it won't be as cold because it's colder than it's ever been and colder than it will ever be.
Let's hope so.
Well, thank you for finally doing this. We had your husband on the podcast, I don't know when that was, maybe about a year ago. And I told him it was a goal of mine to get you on the podcast, and you resisted that until now. So thanks for doing it.
Yeah, I had to keep up with him. He kind of, I can't let him do it and then not do
That's
it.
Right.
So
That's right. You don't want him to have
I'm not getting shown up over here.
That's right.
Can't be the worst Marbach.
Well, you're the second Marbach on the podcast, so we'll see how you end up in the standings when we're done. Are you the first in terms of quality and only second in terms of chronology? We shall see.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll have more people listen.
That's a good gauge.
Who knows?
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, that will be the cliffhanger. We'll see where that ends.
Sorry, Jim.
Yeah. Sorry, Jim. All right. So let's talk about your career path, because you have been doing the same thing for a long time. Mm-hmm. But what were you originally thinking about when you were thinking about careers? Did you say someday I want to be managing a retail specialty running store? Was that your dream from the time you were very young, or did you have different ideas?
I would say when I was a lot younger, I had a lot of really big dreams, different stuff I wanted to do. I was one of those kids that would be all in on something.
Yeah.
Like when I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a choreographer because I was into dance.
All right.
And I studied it. I did dance classes. Like I would do all of my school projects on different choreographers or, dance type stuff. And then as I got older, I kind of got whatever I would be into, I would kind of be obsessed with. Yeah. So when I was in high school, I started doing the school newspaper and eventually was the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. And so I wanted to go into journalism.
Yeah.
I graduated high school in 2007. So it was, it's kind of always journalism is kind of always in flux. And it was definitely being affected a lot by digital media and just things changing in the world of journalism. So I was looking at journalism schools specifically, and my dad brought up that if I studied something more like communication, it would broaden those opportunities for me. I could look at different stuff to do. And specifically looking at the University of St. Francis, I could run there, which the places I was going to study journalism, I just was not at the caliber where I'd be able to run for those teams. So I looked at the University of St. Francis. They have a great communication department, and specifically my concentration was in public relations.
Okay.
And so that journalism and public relations are very similar and very related. But I think that was definitely the right move.
Yeah. So for those who don't know you, and this will become self-explanatory a little bit later, but when you said you chose St. Francis because you could run there, it did not mean you could run from your home to the campus. It meant you could run as a sport. Was it cross country?
Correct. Yeah, cross country and track and field.
Okay.
I probably could run there.
But it would be a long run.
I'm not going to. But I think theoretically I could have run there. Honestly, the distance from my house was kind of a downside for me. I think like every 18-year-old, I wanted to get as far away as possible.
Yeah.
But I also, it's kind of a push-pull situation where I wanted to be on my own doing my own thing, but I didn't actually really want to be that far away from home.
Yeah.
My brother went to Franklin College, which is like a little over 2 hours away. I was looking at Butler.
Yeah.
Butler is a D1, incredibly impressive NCAA cross-country program. St. Francis is an NAIA program. Yeah. So I had the opportunity to compete in sports at that level. It's also just a much different size school.
Yeah.
And as a freshman, I lived on campus. So I got that same opportunity and got to kind of make my own path.
So did you do all three, cross country, spring, and winter track?
Yeah. So I did cross country in the fall, indoor track, winter, early spring, and then in the spring, outdoor track. So,
and were you distance events in the in winter and spring track?
Yeah. So actually, so technically a 3-sport athlete. And then I did everything, depending on the year and the season, I did anything from like the 400 up to the 5K on the track.
Yeah. Okay.
So pretty much as short as you can go as a distance runner. Almost as long. I never did a 10K on the track. Thank goodness. And not because I don't like the 10K. I just wouldn't. Everybody would have been out there for too long.
Yeah, I had the same problem. I ran the 2-mile indoor, and I think on an indoor track, it's 20-something laps, which seemed like forever. Now 2 miles seems like nothing.
Right.
But yeah, I was the person who held up the rest of the event a lot of the time.
Yeah, so. I wasn't trying to get pulled off the track so they could start the next event. I did end up, I was mainly a mid-distance runner when I came out of high school, so like 800 and mile.
Okay. Right.
That was more my focus.
So you have a family business, if you will, in running. Your brother is a coach. Your dad has been a runner for at least as long as I've known him. Mm-hmm. And your dad parlayed that into founding Three Rivers Running Company, which he founded with a partner when he launched the business, mm-hmm. correct? So this happens, this business launches when you're in high school, and I want to bridge between, okay, Lynn's in high school, her dad starts this business, to today, where now you're involved day to day, you're managing the business. You're thinking about journalism, you do some jobs out of school after you're done at St. Francis. When do you decide to go all in with the store, and why do you make that decision?
So when we first opened in 2004, I would have been about 15.
Yeah.
So I was actually too young to work at the store, mm-hmm. and I really wanted to, mm-hmm. but legally I couldn't.
Yeah.
And my brother could, and I remember being really jealous that he got to work there, and he didn't even really seem to like it. He's told me since that he liked working at the store. He just didn't like fitting customers for shoes, which is our entire business model.
I liked everything except for the customer.
Yeah, he just happened to be 16 months older than me.
So he is old enough to work, but still in high school when the store opens?
Yeah, he would have been I was a sophomore. He was a junior.
Got it.
And so then by my senior year, I started working at the store, just super part-time. And then I off and on during college, just depending on, my schedule and breaks and summers and that kind of stuff, I worked at the store.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of a similar situation from when I graduated high school where I wanted to, blaze my own path mm-hmm. and go out mm-hmm. and get a quote unquote real job and do all these different things. And I did some internships while I was in school. I did have another full-time job after I graduated that just didn't work out. It just wasn't really what I wanted to do.
I think we all have at least one of those, yeah.
I mean, everyone either has one or they're in one.
Or they will be, yeah. They're in one, yeah, for sure. They don't know they're in it,
Yeah, and so I think it's important to test the waters and try other stuff out to see what you do and don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And that led me to come back home to the family business and back to a lot of things basically involved with running. So around that same time, I began my coaching career. Yeah. And I coached for 3 years at Bishop Luers.
Yep.
And then came back working at the store kind of around that same time. Okay. So it all kind of tied back in together.
All right. So for those who are not familiar, a lot of the people listening to the podcast will be familiar with Three Rivers Running Company. But for those who aren't, how do you describe the business, the store, to those who don't know much about it?
So Three Rivers Running Company is a run specialty store. Mm-hmm. So we do specialize in running shoes, but we fit everybody for a comfortable pair of shoes. Essentially, what we do is a gait analysis process. Mm-hmm. So we pride ourselves on our customer service and our fitting process. Everyone that comes in looking for shoes will put through our gait analysis process where we'll measure their feet, we'll ask a lot of questions, we'll watch them walk or run on the treadmill or on the track just to see what type of shoe would be best for them and kind of shepherd them through that whole process for them to find something that's going to work well for whatever they need the shoe to do or whatever they need to do in the shoe.
Yep.
So as opposed to just being a shoe store or being, solely running focused, we're truly there to kind of bridge the customer with the product and bring those together. And
it's understanding how that individual runs because everybody has, a different gait, as the gait analysis name implies, GAIT, not GATE. So you're looking at how does that individual run? And for those who are intimidated by that, it's literally only like a minute or maybe even less
Yeah.
that you're being watched on the treadmill?
Yeah, I say 30 to 60 seconds. And then we watch it and we basically take a video of the lower legs, ankles, and feet to see how things are moving, to see what category of shoe would be best. Like you said, everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's body works a little bit differently and moves a little bit differently. And so we have 12 different brands of shoes and tons of different models within that to find, what's going to best suit what they need.
So, and Lynn, what is your role currently with the store?
So my title technically is vice president. That doesn't really explain anything. So I usually just say general manager.
Okay.
Which means I just generally do everything.
Yeah. Whatever your dad wants you to do, right? Yeah.
But not necessarily. I mean, it could be much, much beyond that.
Yeah.
He does a lot of the kind of higher end, very business specific stuff,
Sure.
Paying bills and, paying invoices and all that kind of specific stuff. And then more of the ground level stuff is what I do.
So we've had, I think you're close to guest 140 on the podcast, but we haven't talked to a lot of folks who are day-to-day in retail. Tell me some of the things that you really like about that, and tell me some of the challenges that you run into as someone who's running an independent retail store.
Well, I'll start with the challenges. I think retail is always tough just due to the math.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we're in a particularly good spot with the type of product and the margins that we get on those products. But it's always tough just to make the numbers work with retail.
Yeah.
Compared to other industries. Staffing can be another issue because what we do is specialized customer service. It's a high skill job. It's not like normal retail. And so we want to pay like that. But it's also not necessarily, hours-wise and pay-wise going to be the same as like an office desk job.
Yeah, and you're looking for people who know about the world of running. So a lot of times you're hiring people who are in school and they're running, so they have busy lives. So their schedules aren't completely flexible. And many of them, after 4 years of school, they go somewhere else, they get another job, and then you have to find a replacement for them.
Right. Yeah. So it makes it tough because we do hire a lot of student athletes from the University of St. Francis, Purdue, Fort Wayne. And it's a great college job for them. They're, depending on what they're doing with their major, a lot of times it ties into what they're studying. And it, having people that are directly involved in the sport, I think is really beneficial.
Yeah, for sure.
But it does make it tough when people graduate and then leave. A lot of times we'll have people that stay on and just work like weekends or things like that. So one of the upsides and downsides of what we do is we're open 7 days a week. So that can be a struggle, but it also gives opportunities, for a high schooler, for example. We have a high school that just works on Sundays. So that gives him an opportunity. Plus, that's just another day, obviously, of sales that we can have. So I think it's specialty retail, I think, is a lot different than normal retail, but it still comes with some of those same woes that you would get. But I think with one of the benefits of retail is that it's not the same every day.
Yeah.
It's always going to be something, it's vaguely the same, but there's different challenges and different rewards, basically.
Yeah. Well, and
as the days go on.
And despite all those challenges, the store's had a lot of success. You've got the 20th anniversary coming up this year. So tell me a little bit about that. Obviously, it's an exciting thing, but how are you celebrating that? What does that mean to you to be part of a business that didn't exist 20 years ago and is now successful and thriving and all those good things? Yeah,
it's extremely exciting. I keep having to remind myself that 20 years means that I'm 35. When we opened, I was, a sophomore in high school. And so it's really, it both seems like it flew by and that it was a lifetime.
Yeah.
Because it really is the lifetime of the store. And we've had so many different staff and so many different people contribute to like what we, the store that we are today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things that we're going to do to celebrate, we're going to do a celebratory concert at Baker Street Center on March 9th.
Nice. Yeah.
And so my father, Brad, who's the president of Three Rivers Running Company and the principal owner, he is really into blues rock. So we have a blues rock artist coming out and we'll have tickets live for that. We're going to have all kinds of fun stuff on that specific date. We're also going to have some special sales in store across the month of March. So March for us is usually a really busy month in general. Yeah. This year is going to be even busier because it's our 20th anniversary, but we definitely want, this is a huge occasion for us. So we want to celebrate in style.
Well, that's great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a really cool thing. And, another thing that I think makes it special is the fact that, and I'm biased, I was a fan of the store long before, the store became a client of Asher, but you've always been very community-oriented, very, very service-oriented from a retail standpoint, but very community-oriented. I remember back when the store first opened on Covington Road, it was great to be able to walk in and see your dad and others who I was seeing at races and who I knew were doing things beyond just selling shoes. They were embedded in the community. I think that's continued and even increased over the years. So tell me about some of the things you're doing from a community standpoint that maybe you've always been doing or some things that are new as the store's evolved.
Yeah, being involved in the community is one of the most important things that we do. We're a local business and the community helped build us, so we help build the community is kind of how we see it.
Yeah.
I think we've always wanted to be integrated in the area that we're around. That's kind of the part of the reason that we exist. When my father was, I guess that would have been in the early 2000s, he'd been running when he was younger. He ran in high school. He ran while he was in college. And then after he and my mom had me and my brother, he kind of slowed down a little bit. He had a knee injury.
Yeah.
He was kind of getting back into it. And so around that time, he was either driving down to Indianapolis or ordering stuff online from Roadrunner Sports. And he noticed when he'd go to races and talk to other people, that was kind of the same thing. Yeah. And people wanted somewhere that they could get shoes where they could try them on and they could see, what shoe would be best for them. And so I think that the store itself was created out of a community need.
Yeah.
And so that we've always had that as the core of who we are.
Yeah. And one of the things that you've started recently is the Appleseeds program, which is designed to get kids involved and at a time when it's really hard to keep kids active. Tell me a little bit about that. What's the goal of the program and how has that evolved over the past few years?
Yeah, Appleseeds is probably my favorite thing that I do at the store right now.
Yeah.
I built Appleseeds in 2017, and we started with just a summer running club. So it was like an 8-week program. I think we had 20 or 25 kids that first year. But basically at that point, it was just for elementary school kids, just to kind of get them involved, introduce them to running.
Yeah.
And, just kind of basically getting it started.
Yeah.
Since then, we've grown. Now we have 4 different programs a year. So we'll have our winter indoor track club coming up soon. We've got our summer running program that's now 10 weeks. We've got a cross-country season that we're doing in the fall. And then we have a track camp, which is 4 days that we do at the very end of the year.
Okay.
And so we've doing that, we've been able to, work with a lot more kids and expand what we're doing. The core of Appleseeds, pun intended.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Thank you.
It almost went right over my head.
I honestly didn't think you noticed it. But the core of what we do at Appleseeds is to make running fun.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily trying to, find the next Olympian. Running is for everybody. Running should be fun, and running is something that everyone can do.
Yeah.
It should be accessible and it should be, engaging for the kids. And so we do workouts and we do races and, we challenge them to grow and get better. And we teach them about, the sport and the science behind it. But really the whole point of it is just to make running fun so that people like running.
Well, and what you said about it being accessible, there's a lot of sports that parents can choose from and a lot of good ones in our community, but a lot of them are very expensive. If you look at the equipment that goes into football and hockey especially. I was a former hockey player, and basically my family ran out of money for me to play hockey is why I stopped, because the equipment was so expensive. So you can have families from a lot of walks of life get involved, keep their kids active, and not have to worry about, mortgaging the house in order to gear them up for the next season.
Yeah, I do notice that with a lot of other sports that there's a lot of barriers to entry.
Yeah.
And you're having to pay for equipment, plus you're paying for coaching, plus you're paying for travel and all these different things. So one of my main goals with Appleseeds was to keep the cost as low as possible. And so I've looked at other sports programs, really even just around the area, and they're like 3 or 4 times as expensive, which, is understandable depending on what facilities and equipment and stuff that you need. But really with running, especially for kids, they just need a pair of shoes.
Yeah.
And everything else, everything else is just kind of gravy on top of that. Yeah. So, if they want, nice running clothes, or they want, a GPS watch or something like that, you don't need any of that stuff. It makes it easy.
Yeah, for sure.
But, a 10-year-old doesn't really need a GPS anyways.
Probably not.
So, I mean, and we, like I said, we just try to keep it fun and keep it enjoyable. So we do a lot of games that involve running. So, like, we'll do a workout, and then a lot of times kids are like, how many do we have left? I can't run another step.
Yeah.
And then they get a water break and they're like, what game are we playing? And they'll run another 30 minutes just playing dodgeball or something like that.
Well, it's such for people who aren't really into running as a sport, the thing that I always liked about it 30 pounds ago when I used to be a serious runner is just the confidence it gives you in other areas of life. When you run your first 5K, it gives you confidence to say, maybe I could do a 10K. And when you do that, you can say, maybe I can do anything. And I'm sure what you're seeing in kids is, kids who maybe never ran competitively or seriously in their life, who are, seeing potential in themselves they didn't see any time before that.
Yeah. And with running, I think what's really important is it's not necessarily what you run, it's where you started. Mm-hmm. So, a kid that can't run a whole mile and then by the end of the season, they can run a mile and they only walk once is a huge accomplishment.
For
and
sure.
So anytime you have like those improvements or those little challenges that you can overcome, I think it lights a spark.
Yeah.
So when we just did, for example, our track camp, we worked somewhat on high jump, and it was like, we're going to start the bar really low so they can get over it, because if they never get over it, they're not going to want to keep jumping. Yeah. If they get over that first bar, all of a sudden they love to high jump.
Yeah.
So I think that's something in running that can be applied for all ages.
Yeah.
It's once you kind of accomplish something, or once you get over one hurdle, another pun, then you have that confidence that you can do other things, other hard things, not necessarily even just in running. But like you said, when people finish a 5K, then they want to run a 10K, then they want to run a half marathon, and then crazy people want to run ultra marathons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's one of the things too, that when I have a challenge in life, I'll say, hey, I ran a marathon. If I can do that, maybe I can do this. Mm-hmm. And there's a little voice in my head that says there was a time you didn't think you could do that, and you did, right? So, and a lot of that started for me when I was in 7th grade. I switched schools, didn't know anyone, and I was like, how am I going to meet people? Okay, I know how to run, I'll do that. And it turned me into a lifelong runner. And I think the fact that you're giving kids that opportunity is a great thing, introducing them to a sport that, I think it has the advantages of being individual. You're competing against yourself, but you also have that camaraderie and that team around you.
Yeah, and you don't have that in every sport.
Yeah.
I think that one of the most beautiful things about running is the communal aspect of it. Whatever level it's at, whether it's like an elementary kids race or, like an elite level, Olympic race or something like that, you still see that same, even between competitors, because you're going through something together, you're sharing something together, and you're all kind of working towards a common goal, even though you want to beat each other. It's like, for example, if you have a whole bunch of really fast men and they're all fighting tooth and nail, only one of them's going to win, but like all of them could break 4.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Or PR. I remember when I was running competitively, before I knew your dad well, I would identify him as like, if I can get close to that guy, I know I had a good race. I was never going to beat him, but it was a motivator for me to at least stay within his sight line, which I didn't do very often, and probably still couldn't do to this day. But you're really judging yourself against yourself, and it's a bonus if you finish at the front of the pack.
Exactly. Yeah. The true competition's the clock, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that makes it something that everybody can do at any level. It's not like, someone who's like 35, like my age, that wants to start playing basketball. Like, where am I going to learn how to play basketball?
Yeah.
But anybody can start running, from anywhere, and you can run as long or as short as you want. A mile is a mile.
Yeah, for sure.
Regardless of how long it takes you.
Yeah. So as you look ahead, because, there's a great future ahead for the store. What is your vision for it? What do you want to happen? What are some of the things you're working on to make the business sustainable into the future? What's important to you?
Honestly, I think that a lot of the progress that we've made over the last 20 years, I think, is really, really important, and we've kind of gotten the business to a point where we are really in a good spot right now. So right now we've got, more staff, more brands, more product, more inventory, more grassroots programs, all of that kind of stuff than we've ever had before. And so I think continuing with this similar trajectory is really what I'd like to see. I think specifically with the store itself, we're always kind of trying to be as flexible and as innovative as possible. So as things change, we want to be, on the cutting edge of things with technology, with our brands, with, how we're doing our gate analysis process, all those different things. But really the root of that is our customer service. And so I think on a granular level, the care and the, support that comes from our staff is really the most important thing. And so none of that is anything that we want to change. That's all, really just staying focused on what's really important at the end of the day, which is that customer service piece.
Yeah, I think that's great. You've had success for 20 years. So if you invest in some of the same things, you'll probably continue to have success. That's great. Well, let's pivot to a few quick hit questions. And let's start with your career path. You, at a young age, took on a leadership role. You've hired people. You've probably had to let some people go over the years. You've learned some things about building a successful and fulfilling career. What do you think are the keys that you've learned that you think are applicable to anybody? What does it take to have a successful career?
I think just constantly learning, being curious and seeking out information has been really important. So there's, being a general manager, there's all kinds of stuff that falls onto my plate, essentially. And so there's been a lot of stuff that I've had to either figure out or ask questions or learn about that I didn't have to do or didn't even know needed to be done. So I think being kind of diversifying my skill set and just being open to learning about new stuff. And, as we progress as well, eventually I'll have to learn even more stuff that, that Brad does on a day-to-day basis that, and then other people will have to do some of the stuff that I'm doing. So I think some of that just being flexible and being willing to do whatever really is for the good of the business, as opposed to being like, well, I really like making the Facebook post. So it's like, there's other people that are better than me at that. And so I'm going to have them do that. And then I'm going to flex and do this other thing. Or I need to work on, for example, right now I'm learning more about accounting, which I never thought would be something that I'd want to do. But it is a really important piece. And it's something that I've actually really enjoyed.
Well, and you alluded to something I think that's important to mention is you don't do any of this alone. You've got a team that works with you. Tell us a little bit about some of the folks on the team and who some of your key people are that you rely on for different things.
So we have a product manager who does basically everything product related, ordering, inventory, everything, shipping, receiving, all that kind of stuff. And then we have a senior sales floor manager who basically is going to be our external person. She's in charge of everything out on the sales floor. She does merchandising. She, works with obviously the customers. She does some back office work as well, but essentially he's in charge of the product. She's in charge of the sales floor. Then we have two other shift managers that help a lot with managing the sales floor and the products and all that kind of stuff as well. And then we have a marketing manager as well who handles, basically she'll get the customers in, Andy will get the products in, and then our staff will have those two meet in the middle. So, that's what our staff does really on a day-to-day basis is helping customers find the best possible solution for what they need. So we have to have those two things. Otherwise you can't.
Sure. Well, I mentioned that because I think sometimes, people can, it's a balance between two things you mentioned. Sometimes people imagine that someone like you has to do everything, and you have to know about every aspect of the business, but you also have to know, as you mentioned, when someone is smarter than you and can probably do a better job with something. So I think delegation is an important part of it and something that sounds like you've learned over the years too.
what are you, my therapist? You sound just like her. That is really important. It's something that I still need to work on because I do feel like a lot of stuff, everything kind of falls onto me. But we do have an amazing staff and I think, a really, really good core group of managers that I can lean on and I can ask for help with things. And I've been able to get, certain tasks delegated to them, which has helped tremendously. I mean, it's for the good of everybody.
Yeah.
And I think it helps utilize their skill set better, so they're enjoying what they're doing more. It gives them more ownership of the business and what they're doing. Gives them more ownership of their job. And I think it's also, like you said, it's just realizing like somebody else is probably better than me at this.
Yeah, well,
and I should let them do it.
Yeah, well, I think when you start in a leadership role as young as you did, there is a natural inclination to try to kind of prove yourself, especially in a family business, to come in and say, I need to be the smartest person in the room about everything. And then if your leadership experience is anything like mine, you learn pretty quickly you can't and you're not. And that's where the delegation piece comes in. Yeah,
definitely. I think sometimes it's also like, well, I was put in this role, so I have to prove why I'm worthy to be in this role. And that really, like you said, I learned pretty quickly that comes from managing other people and having other people do stuff like that. So not everything, everything doesn't necessarily fall on my shoulders, but I'm still responsible for everything that goes on in there. But I'm really lucky with the people that we've got at the store right now and the stuff that they're able to do, and kind of some of the stuff that they've just taken and run with it.
There's another one. I think that's 3 or 4.
3.
Wow. This is the punniest episode I think we've ever had. All right, second quick hit question. What is a myth or misconception related to your work that could be about the world of specialty retail? It could be about the world of running that you want to either debunk, or something you think that isn't appreciated enough that you want to amplify?
The biggest myth about our store is that we're just for runners. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, we're Three Rivers Running Company.
Yeah.
That's probably, I would say, of all the customers that we see, less than 50% of them are going to run in their shoes. Mm-hmm. We fit walkers. We fit people that are just doing general fitness. Mm-hmm. People going to the gym. People getting shoes for work if they're standing all day.
Yeah.
People who need more supportive shoes just to wear around all the time. Mm-hmm. People with specific health problems, foot problems, ankle problems. We fit everybody.
Yeah.
Anybody that needs a comfortable pair of shoes.
Okay.
Technically, our shoes are classified as running shoes, but running shoes are really versatile and work for a lot of things. It's not like, getting a bowling shoe or like a football cleat where it's like you can only wear it for that one specific thing.
Sure.
You can wear, and I do, wear running shoes all the time for pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times people will get intimidated to come see us. And one of the things we hear all the time when someone walks through the door is, I'm not a runner, but you don't have to be. Well, everyone can come shop with us.
Yeah, and part of it, too, is just realizing how the shoes you walk in every day affect your overall health. Even if you have no aspirations to be a runner, you're going to spend a decent amount of time on your feet, regardless of who you are in most cases. So they should work well for you, and they should keep you out of injury, even if you never have any aspirations to run a quarter mile.
Yeah. So I've heard, I do not know who to attribute this quote to, but I've heard you spend the majority of your life in your bed or your shoes, so it pays to invest in both.
Yeah.
So if you think about it that way, I mean, your feet are the foundation for your entire body.
Yeah.
All of your weight is being, put onto your feet. Yep. So it is really important, especially if you're going to be on your feet, using your feet, and walking around, or at a job where you're standing all day. It makes a big difference over time specifically.
Okay, so not just for runners. We're learning something here today. Okay, and then the last quick hit question. Obviously, you have to deal with a lot of technology in your work, and this can be a technology solution, but it doesn't have to be. A lot of people on the podcast talk about analog solutions. What is a tool, a trick, a tip, or hack, something you use in your work that makes your job easier that you think deserves a mention?
We were just talking about this the other day. We use Canva.
Yeah.
Canva is like a design and editing tool.
Yeah.
And I think it's like $12 a month.
Yeah.
As opposed to, using some a higher end like Creative Suite, which like I said, we have a marketing manager, and she's phenomenal, and Canva is like her very favorite thing because she can do everything she needs in there. And I can get in there and do everything I need. So we can use it as a team. We can use it individually. It has like a million different templates and all the different, sizes and basically everything that you could need to design, stuff that we would need for our
social media
store.
Posts, flyers,
exactly.
all that.
Yeah. So we use it for all kinds of stuff, and it's been like invaluable.
Yeah. Well, it's a great tool, and I think it's the tool that's probably been mentioned the most when I asked that question, but that's with a reason. I mean, there was a time when it was the Adobe Creative Suite, which is great, and then or something that wasn't great. And it kind of filled that in between for folks like me who aren't trained designers. And you can put out a high quantity of stuff, but still be assured that it's going to be of a certain quality. There's enough guardrails in Canva that are going to, you could still make a bad design in Canva, but it's going to help you make it better, even if you're not trained as a designer.
Yeah, when I started at St. Francis, I asked if I could get a minor in graphic design, and they said that does not exist.
Because it is so specialized?
Exactly. Yeah. It's graphic design is really specialized and really technical. So it just doesn't work for the amount of credit hours that go into a minor.
Yeah.
But we went to like an industry conference a couple of years ago, and there was someone speaking to us about specifically marketing and how to do that. Because there's a lot of stores that are even smaller than us that have, we have about 16 employees. Typically, we have anywhere from like 15 to 18 employees on staff at a time. And there's some other stores that'll have, like 3. And the owner's doing everything. The owner's fitting people for shoes and then checking in boxes and then writing an order and then trying to make a flyer.
Yeah.
And so somebody was like, well, what do you do if you don't know how to do any kind of graphic design? And she said, you should hire someone to work on your sales floor that has a degree in graphic design.
Yeah.
And I raised my hand and I was like, you should just use Canva.
Yeah.
It's a lot cheaper. And I don't think anybody with a graphic design degree is necessarily like, well, I'll just go do this and then I'll do some flyers for them.
Yeah.
You need to either hire someone to do that freelance, which is pretty expensive. I mean, graphic designers are not cheap for a reason.
Oh, for sure.
But, some like you said in Canva, there's some guardrails in there, so I can't mess it up too bad. Well, it's got the templates already put together for me.
Good for you for raising your hand and educating the folks in the room. Well, I'm guessing that among the rooms you're in when it's leadership of running specialty stores, and I could be completely wrong, but you're probably younger than many of them, I would imagine. Is it equal distribution, male and female, or is it male dominated?
I'd have to look at the numbers. I think it's male dominated, but not heavily.
So maybe 60-40 at
probably.
most.
Yeah. There's a lot of stores that are co-owned by like couples. So like married couples.
Okay.
We have found other stores, but there's not a ton that are co-owned by father and daughter specifically or parent child. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a child, but
yeah, but you were at one time.
Yeah. So we've seen other stores that are like mother and son or father-daughter, father-son, that kind of thing. It's not super common, but I think with local businesses or other businesses similar to ours that aren't in the run and specialty channel, I think that is more common.
Yeah.
Have a retirement plan.
Well, I say that because good for you for speaking up. It can be intimidating to be in those rooms, but I think your perspective as someone who maybe is a little younger is helpful when other people are looking for what tools can I use to make this a little easier, especially if they're a staff of 3 and not 16. So, yeah. So keep educating everyone. That's great.
If I have anything else good to offer, I will.
All right, great. Well, you have done a great job, and you might be the number 1 Marbach on this podcast. We'll just have to see what the numbers tell us.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe get my 3-year-old on here.
All right.
Because she could be a really good guest. She's kind of a wild card, though.
All right. Well, she was in this very room, so she
was in this room.
That's one of the qualifiers.
She might have gotten crumbs everywhere, and she might have broken a fan. I call her a 3-nager.
Okay. All right. That's great.
Yeah. Not even 3 yet, but.
All right. Well, she will be, I can guarantee you, she will be the next Marbach on the podcast. We'll make it happen.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you, Lynn. And thank you to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.